So right now, I've been kind of bored jumping around to different games, waiting for something new to come out to really keep me occupied with the kind of content I like. I started thinking of a game I pledged support to, not on one account, but on two. You've probably heard of it. The game was called Chronicles of Elyria, and it promised a lot of really interesting gameplay features. There was a whole ruling system with monarchs, they had lots of farming planned, and even town creation. Your character would age and eventually have children that one day you could play as. It sounded frickin' amazing. Too amazing. I have a sordid history with this game. Well, I guess it's not that sordid, but it does go back. So basically, when I first heard about this game in 2017, I was really excited. I loved the idea of building up your own towns, the farming, and especially, you guessed it, the animal breeding. I mean, come on, this game sounded like all of my tastes in a nutshell. So I contacted their team and thought I'd inquire about making some content for them, specifically on animal husbandry. This was right after I made most of my BDO horse videos, and I was running out of things I wanted to accomplish in the game animal-wise. I was hoping to get some early alpha access and secure some content on my channel for the game without having to spend too much. I thought of it as kind of a trade, I get to play the game, and they get exposure. It started off innocently enough with a friendly correspondence mentioning that they were considering an affiliate program for some time in 2018, but they weren't there yet. There were some emails between me and one of their team. I'm not going to name names because it's just not cool, but you can probably guess who I'm talking about at some points. So I didn't really get anywhere, and I kind of dropped the idea. And then about a month later, I was introduced to their new community manager with an email from the original guy I spoke with. I wasn't really sure what to expect, as I had never really had this experience before, but I thought, why not? I'd go for it. They basically wanted me to add them on Disco so we could talk and set up an interview, discuss the game and hopefully answer some of the questions I had so that I could make some content. To be honest, I was a little apprehensive about having a full-on interview. I'm not really the most extroverted person, so the idea of talking to someone with voice that I didn't know and having to do an interview was a little daunting. I was also trying to sell my house at the time, which was proving to be an incredible amount of stress, having to drop everything when people wanted to come look at the house, having to always keep it spotless with kids messing it up all the time. We had some trouble matching up our appointments, and I rescheduled once or twice until we finally met up on Disco. When we spoke, I was a little taken aback by how they wanted to go about introducing me to the community and getting me involved with the game. Basically, there was this idea about me joining a contest they had planned called the Free Kingdom of Elyria. They were going to give away a free kingdom, i.e. a monarch package, which went for the whopping cost of 10,000 US dollars on the North American Luna server. Now sure, this sounds nice and all, but it wasn't really what I wanted. I wanted to own a piece of land and raise animals. I liked the idea of maybe being a mayor and running a small town, but a whole kingdom? Not to mention, with the way these guys talked about how the game would run, people could legit just kill you and take your place. One of my biggest concerns about spending any money on this game was that almost all of what you could buy could simply be stolen from you from other players. Imagine being the ruler of an entire kingdom and having everyone vying for your spot. Did I also mention that I'm not really a people person? Sure, I make these videos, and I'm friendly enough, but I loathe being in the spotlight. I can only manage with these videos because it's legit just my voice. A fire and forget video that becomes a part of my content library and makes a small amount of passive income. It's not a big deal, and sometimes I make some friends who are like-minded, but for the most part, it's sort of a disassociative thing, Having to deal with all of those people bugging me all of the time, the constant pummeling of, "Fix this, Queen Mmogurl. The peasants were attacked by bandits again, Queen. Please give us a solution." No, and just no. I wish I had admitted this to myself early on and not bothered at all with the whole event, but oh well. At least it makes an interesting story all of these years later, right? So, the CM is totally into me entering this contest. They're talking about how they're going to introduce me to the community in Disco and basically give me an easy in to the contest. Now, there was already a huge community that I had not been a part of, and it felt a little bit like cheating to have their CM pushing me to the whole community. I worried that everyone was just going to be pissed off at me for it, so I made a post introducing my intent to run for the Monarch spot, And I even sat down with my husband and came up with like a really decent charter for how I was going to rule the land. I made an introductory video for my channel so that my subs, which were only 1,000 at the time, knew that I was going to be involved in this game. Then it comes back to the push for me to get onto Disco and basically make myself available for everyone to question, which honestly just sounded like hell to me. But then there was the added worry of the CM wanting to basically ping me to everyone in the channel so that I could get more attention for my campaign. Now, I know most would be happy to have that kind of an edge, but it just felt unfair to me, and I knew people would be pissed off. It just wasn't how I wanted things to go down. As far as I know, they might have been doing this for all the applicants, and if that's the case, then it doesn't really matter. But I got the feeling from our conversation that I would be receiving an edge that others had not. I mean, who knows? I worked on a campaign ad that was actually really funny. I never published it though, I just went hunting for it too while prepping for this video and sadly couldn't find it anywhere. I must have deleted it at some point. But somewhere between working on that ad and dealing with the stress of the strange way I was being pushed into this game was just not sitting well with me. I totally freaked out and was like, you know what, I'm done. I just dropped it like a hot potato and disengaged. I still liked the idea of potentially trying to win the contest, but didn't want the top spot. You see, they had a bunch of runner-ups, and given the amount of entries, I thought I was almost guaranteed to win one of them. They had 6 second-place Royal packages and 8 Courtier packages, so I'm thinking there's a good chance of me getting one of them, right? One thing I haven't mentioned, though, until now, is that there was a really shady feature to this event called the Kingdom Tokens. Well, you see, for just $10, you can either buy your own vote for yourself, or someone else can buy it and vote for you. I ended up buying 4 tokens for myself, so that was an extra $40 that I thought would solidify a spot for me in the lower ranks of winners. As the end of the contest grew closer, emails started going out reminding people that they could buy these tokens and secure a spot for themselves as a ruler in this new, quote, free kingdom. Which, thinking about it now, is just the pinnacle of irony because it's not really free if you have to pay to win, now is it? Then got the really messed up part where they actually released a token tracker that showed how many tokens each person had, and everyone went absolutely friggin' crazy trying to outdo each other and secure their monarch position. It showed exactly how many tokens you needed to get each spot, only 385 tokens for a duchy spot and 8 for a county. It left a really bad taste in my mouth, and I basically put my hands up and walked away. Pretty disgusted with how this cash grab had gone. It wasn't free at all. It was basically like an auction for the positions. And mind you, I got thrown into this mess all because I made the mistake of offering to make content as an affiliate of some sort. Then came the announcement in January that Chronicles of Elyria would not be getting backed by a legitimate publisher, and this, in my opinion, was the beginning of the end. Caspian, the captain of the sinking ship, stated his desire to keep the game the way they wanted it, but my guess was that they didn't have a complete enough game to actually land a publisher. The way he intended to further pay for his game was to, quote, fundraise by charging people interested in the game more and more for items that didn't even exist yet. Each month was a new fundraiser. First, it was the Chill store event, just for Valentine's Day, to buy a ring for your loved one, a picnic basket, or even a deviant package that sounded like some BDSM kink for your game. Remember, it doesn't exist. The next month, it was more of the same, offering farm packages, a beekeeper kit, pets, and other farming goodies. I saw this for what it was pretty early on after the Free Elyria campaign, and I feel bad for those who didn't and continued to spend their money on this complete scam. They kept sending out emails urging patrons to spend money in their store and help support the continued production of the game. It was almost like we were playing a paper RPG because they just kept selling crap and acting like there was something more than there actually was. Come and pick out your surname. Here, come and pick the domain you're going to settle in. Look, you're actually doing something, but you're not really. This went on for years until finally, in March 2020, they came out with some playable content. Air quotes, you can't see them, but I'm making them. The Trial of the Tested, an obstacle course, but it looked pretty lame. I mean, I've dabbled in the Unreal Engine and made whole levels. It's not really that hard, and the level shown in the gameplay footage isn't impressive at all. It's not even outside. It's not showing any good scenery. It's just a badly textured rock wall surface in a cave, someone jumping on a bunch of wooden planks. Wow, I could legit do that within 5 minutes of loading a new game in Unreal, and I'm not even that good with it. Even still, this content was only available to Alpha 1 backers, which would have had to spend a pretty penny to get included. They were also under NDA not to share any of the content, which probably was so people wouldn't know how crappy it actually was. It looked like nothing like the original videos that were just stunning and beautiful. The whole thing was a clever bait and switch. Then 5 days later, 5 days, Caspian put up a post titled Into the Abyss, which strangely went into everything they had accomplished in the past year. Me being a pretty blunt person, have a lot of trouble looking at this as anything but, hey, look at all this stuff I did, but it doesn't matter because the game is dead, see ya. And he laid everyone off and the game is just over because they ran out of money. He brazenly talks about how he had considered doing another Kickstarter anniversary fundraising event to try and get just enough money to get some content into the backers' hands, but ultimately deciding not to. That, quote, I'd rather people spend their money on games they can play now, or better yet, food and shelter, rather than on the continued development of Chronicles of Elyria. Well, that's great, Caspian. A little too late for that considering I had no freaking clue I was supporting your continued development and not the actual game I was promised when I forked over $400 to the cause. Thanks so much for making all of that clear 3 years ago. Then there's this whole part where he talks about atonement, which very obviously doesn't include actually returning backers their money. It's more smoke and mirrors, trying to make it sound like he's apologizing by talking about failure and atonement, but not actually doing anything to make it right. It's really a good lesson in bullshitting, and it's actually the thing I hate most about our very corporatesque mentality in America. It's all a lot of fluff to avoid saying the truth. Things like, we're doing a reorganization within the company and want a description of all of your duties. It really means we're going to fire a bunch of people and give you their duties to do as well, and that's if we don't fire you because you're not essential, okay? Thanks. Now we're not talking about a game that had zero financing. This game first started with a successful Kickstarter in May 2016 that asked for only $900,000 and got $1.35 million in backing. And that's not including all of the extra financing they got from their store through people like me who joined in later or continued to purchase additional items. Developing games, especially MMORPGs, take a lot of work, and honestly, I'm not sure how they ever thought $900K would be enough. Consider salaries alone, let alone equipment and infrastructure. Most people probably thought they were farther along than they actually were in development, or simply didn't understand the costs involved with a large undertaking like this. The original plan, as stated in Caspian's own words, was to use the initial money to get a playable demo together to sell to a publisher and then get the financial support from said publisher to finish the game. Quoted from the news update he published on March 25th, 2020, so the conversations generally went something like, either work faster, show us more, or we're going to want to take over development and make changes to the business model. This was unacceptable to us, and one by one the conversations with publishers fell silent. You find quickly in any business that people always tell half-truths. My lie detector hones in on the part where he says, show us more. I don't think this was as much about losing creative authority so much as just not having enough done. We've all seen the original videos, what they promised us to be already done, and then what we got, that stylized, cartoonish crap. If the publishers saw how little they actually had done, this is likely why they took off. He was legit asking publishers to come in and pay them to make the game they want to make, and that is not how business works. We've all seen it. Look at EA and what they've done to BioWare. Look at Activision and Blizzard. Time is money, friend, and if you expect someone to pay your way, they're going to want something substantial in return. In the end, they actually took something like $8 million from the community, which should have been enough to show something, far more than what they ended up with, but probably not enough to finish the job. It's my suspicion that the money was squandered pretty badly, though, and that some extraneous expenditures made their way to the ledgers. I just can't imagine that the demo was all they had to show for all of the time and investment. It leaves you with a feeling that the whole thing just turned into a scam when they couldn't get a publisher to pay the bill. So earlier I had mentioned that I had 2 accounts. I had actually purchased 2 packages. One was a Bloodline package that cost me $125. And the other account was meant to be a backup if I did not win the contest, or potentially go to my husband if I did, which was a mayor package, which looking at now I'm finding I spent 250 big ones on. I also purchased those 4 tokens for $40 that I mentioned earlier to the tune of $415, and that's getting off light compared to what others spent. When I first pledged, they said the game would be in a beta state by 2018, and I hadn't looked into the Kickstarter or even really known much about it. And that was my bad, as it would have been a real eye-opener to see the amount of money requested for funding, but these sorts of things teach us to be more judicious about where we spend our money. Not to say I think that they should get away with it. I absolutely think that everyone should be paid back. Most buyers were not under the impression that we were simply funding their development. I personally paid my money to buy the game, what I thought would be a finished product in a year or less. All payments were handled by the company Xsala, who is hiding behind a 45-day refund policy. What about those of us who have been waiting 3 years, though? A Discord community was formed for a class action lawsuit that hired an attorney and is attempting to get the money back that way. So far, they've gotten to pre-litigation efforts aimed at both Soulbound and Xsala, demanding that someone issues refunds. They have to give them 30 days to reply before filing the actual lawsuit. I haven't seen any updates since, but I'm considering filling out the paperwork myself if I can't get anywhere with my bank. Speaking of which, you can contact your bank and ask for a chargeback given you used a credit or a debit card to pay, and not another third-party payment processor like PayPal. One of my purchases was through PayPal, and I'm not sure I'm going to waste my time trying to get that money back, considering I'll have to actually call and talk to someone who is likely going to read me a script that says, "We don't offer refunds past 185 days. Like I said earlier, time is money, and I don't want to waste more of it on this game." Still, I would like to get my money back. I don't consider myself an angel investor, and if they weren't actually claiming to provide me with a finished product, I would have never spent the money. It really makes me think twice about ever supporting another crowdfunding game, though. Especially when they bypass the rules of Kickstarter to get their funding, i.e., they didn't ask for the amount they actually needed. I know plenty of games have actually created a finished product that started through crowdfunding, but it really doesn't set well with me. And now I'm going to get a bunch of people talking about how I was stupid and spent a bunch of money on a game again. Would be nice if companies weren't constantly trying to rip you off like snake oil salesmen though, huh? In the end, it just makes me sad. Because I just want an MMO to play that has the full package. My full package. And it seems like that is just not going to happen. The most you can ever get is bits and pieces, never the whole shebang. I want player housing similar to Final Fantasy XIV, where I can design my own yard, or better yet, design the house too and place it wherever I want in the world, like an Ark. Maybe place some limitations on cities or areas you don't want crowded, so that you don't end up with an Arcade situation with all the houses just jam-packed on top of each other. And please, please, please make it so people can farm actual crops and make actual products in game that matter and aren't just like a potion or something stupid like that made with the click of a button. I used to love that stupid farm from WoW during the MOP expansion. Remember, it was like Half Hill? I mean, the mini games were annoying as heck, but the rest of it was really cool. You could plant crops and make some really good food, or you could plant resources to harvest. I just want an MMO where I can feel like I'm actually living there as part of the world, creating a uniquely designed piece of it that everyone can see, and participating in the production of goods that others can buy. Imagine if BDO had a fair horse market and didn't tax you so much. Maybe something like that. Maybe that's just too much to ask for, though. Everyone keeps saying that MMOs are dwindling and that nobody has the guts to make something new and innovative. I think it really depends on how this next generation of MMOs does, though. There are a lot that have been in the works for years now, like Ashes of Creation and New World. I haven't been following them all as intently as I could be, but I'm thinking I'm due for a good bit of research on what's out there. Anyone have any good suggestions for, the whole animal thing I like? Breeding animals, cows, sheep, that sort of thing. Think Harvest Moon, but more in depth like BDO's horse system. I'd settle for some good RPG elements as well, more character building, stat control, crafting that doesn't feel like an afterthought, or heck, really good housing. By the way, I'm going to throw a bunch of links down in the info so you can look into the things I mentioned throughout this dialogue. Cited sources and whatnot. I don't consider myself a journalist by any stretch, but I sometimes like to look into things further touched upon in videos I watch, and I figure you guys might like that as well. Let me know what you guys think of this video. I might start making some more opinion pieces like this, as they come up. See y'all later.